Well, the initial fire was actually did not start on the refuge. It started about 12 miles northwest of the refuge on private property, northwest of Waycross. It was started by a downed power line. Had some high winds, and the power line hit the ground and caused a spark and a fire that ran eventually 12 miles into the northwest corner of the refuge.
The other part of this story is this wasn't the only fire. There had been a number of fires all around to the north of us that the Georgia Forestry Commission had been fighting. I mean, they had actually been working extremely hard, almost all hands out, on a number of other fires that were very hard to control when the Sweat Farm Road fire started. And it ran 10 miles the first day. I mean, the most experienced Georgia Forestry Commission firefighters and dozer operators just said, this exceeded anything they had seen in their very seasoned career. They basically ran beside the fire and just tried to keep it from getting wider.
At one point, I mean, it looked like a mushroom cloud right out beyond those pine trees, right out off the back of our parking lot. It was just, the whole sky was full of it. By the time it was over, we had seen flames over treetops all around us. I mean, it was immediately on top of us. We were fortunate it didn't sweep on up and burn this visitor services area. It didn't burn our buildings. It didn't burn the visitor center here, but it got all around us.
Well, it takes what we call a season-ending event. We have to have enough rain to actually put the fire out. Inside the perimeter of the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, you know, most of this is a swamp ecosystem. We do have some pine uplands around the edge, and we do also have some pine islands in the interior, but the majority of it is swampland, which has a lot of organic soils, peat. And as the drought progresses, these layers of peat begin to dry out, and these fires get entrenched in that peat, and it's something that we just can't put out. I mean, we have attempted to and spent tens of millions of dollars and never put it out. We just had to wait on what we call a season-ending event, which could be anywhere from a 5 to 6 inch rainfall. At
its peak, we had 3 different, Type 1 fire teams fighting it from different angles. So there was a refuge federal team on the east, there was a state team on the west. To the south, there's another federal team, and all these volunteer fire departments were all doing their part to stop that fire, push it back, contain it. Sometimes you have to burn out. When you get a break in the weather, you can burn out and remove some of that fuel.
Okefenokee Swamp is a fire-adapted, fire-shaped, and to some extent even fire-dependent landscape. So a big fire, even that one, is not something that the system isn't ready to deal with. Okefenokee Swamp has had many fires over the course of its fairly short 6,500 year geological history. Some of them a whole lot bigger and of a whole lot longer duration than the one that we had in '07.
Fire is in order for the swamp ecosystem to maintain itself as a swamp ecosystem, it has to have fire.
I can name you any number of benefits that come from a fire like that. Ecologically speaking, there's that nutrient release, there's that setting back of successional habitats and processes into habitats like those open prairies that tend to be particularly high value habitats for species that we consider to be high value, high priority species.
Now, while that may be good for the habitat, and that may be a good landscape changing event we need periodically, it's going to come out, and you've got serious obligations to our neighbors to do our best to keep it in the swamp. They love fire in the swamp, but they want to stay in the swamp. When it comes out, it hurts people. It changes.
Historically, I think if you look at the records, these big fires occur, roughly about every 20 to 30 years. So fire is good for the swamp. What concerns us is when fire leaves the swamp, how it's going to affect private properties.
When you see your good friends and when you see good partners, lose their livelihood for the time, it just breaks your heart. and there was a lot of very comforting action. I mean, the Georgia Forestry Commission, the governor's office, Florida, there were programs that were generated, the congressional delegation, to help people have money to replant their forests, to help them do things that would make their forests more fire resilient in the future. And there still were significant loss. A very good forestry partner, they lost 70,000 acres of timber. And I mean, that's a significant blow even to a very, very large forest corporation.
I think we, in terms of what we did well, was we tried to stay ahead of it in terms of the forecast and tried to predict where it was going to move so that we could plan these burnouts. And a burnout is where we actually set a fire ahead of the main fire to take the fuels out in front of it and control it on our terms instead of just letting it run where it wants to or where the wind drives it. So some of those burnouts went well and some of them didn't go so well, but that's just part of the game of fighting fire. So.